Welcome to the tongue, hyoid bone, and jaw in flute playing for effortless articulation and more. I'm Madison. I'm a volunteer with the National Flute Association. If this is your first time attending an NFA event, I would personally like to welcome you to this flute community. The NFA was founded in 1972 and has since grown to become one of the world's largest flute organizations, with members from all 50 states and countries across the globe. We invite you to visit our website, nfaonline.org, and learn more about us and how you can be involved. We'd also like to acknowledge that today's online event is made possible with support from our members, our donors, and the Illinois Arts Council Agency. Thank you, and now we can hand it over to Ruth.
Hi. Thank you very much, Madison, and I'm very happy to be here. And I thank the NFA for inviting me to do this webinar. I know it probably sounds a little obscure talking about the tongue, hyoid bone, and the jaw, but I think once I get started and once we get started, it all makes sense how it all fits together. I'm going to go into speaker. Let's see. Can we do something so that I'm right now you're the speaker, Madison. I don't know if there's a way to change it, but it's okay. Anyway,
we can see you fine.
I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. And
could people mute, please? Mute, please.
Oh yeah, everybody mute. A little bit about myself. I'm a flutist and I live in the Los Angeles area, and I teach flute and perform. And then also I've been really involved with the kind of the movement part of playing the flute and helping people. I have I became a body mapping educator in 2010, and because I was having some problems myself, so I was very curious about how the body moved in playing the flute and ways to improve it. And then I also, during the pandemic, I started doing something called Franklin method, which is not oriented necessarily to musicians, but it's to all movement educators, Pilates teachers, dancers, yoga teachers. And since we're all movers as musicians, it all made sense that I would be learning all this too. So I went into a lot more depth with how the body works, and took 4 levels of training with that. And then also during that time, I started studying with Keith Underwood, who, as many of you know, is very much into how the body works with playing the flute. So all of this put together, I decided to give a class on lesson face called Playing Flute from the Inside Out, because there's so much going on inside our bodies that we don't know about. And when we get to know it and become more aware and our function is better, then we can just become much better flutists and have a lot more options. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm kind of doing this class sort of as an exploration. I'm going to give you ways of becoming more aware, and also ways to release tension. And then we'll do some anatomy so that you can see what I'm talking about. But a lot of it's going to be you on mute, kind of trying things out when we make different kinds of changes. So I hope you have your flutes, and if you don't have your flutes, then you can just imagine. But if you have your flutes, that would be great. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with a way to kind of wake up our body. But before we do that, I would like everybody just to take your flute out and then just play a scale, play a little bit, just play for like 15, 20 seconds. And I'm not going to play for you because this is for you and for us. So we just want to see how things kind of develop through the workshop. So go ahead and take your flute out and play. And this will be your status quo of where you're starting. Okay, everybody's got some idea. And if you feel like getting up to do this would be great, or you can do it standing or sitting. But we're going to do some things that will help us wake up our body to become more aware, to kind of turn on all these things that are called proprioceptors, which are the receptors that we have in our body that tell us what our body is doing, where it is in space, how our muscles are feeling, sort of giving us an idea of how we're moving. So we're going to start out with something really simple that you can do anytime, and it's very nice. So we're going to start out with tapping. So you can just use the tips of your fingers or your palm, and you can just follow me. We're going to tap, first of all, the collarbone and into our shoulders. We'll go onto our sternum, and we'll just lightly tap the jaw, because that is one thing we're going to be working with, and our skull, which you can tap all around. And since we're all connected, we're going to go down now so that we get more of our body, and we can tap around the bottom of our ribs, which is where our diaphragm is attached. And we can also give our abdomen a nice little tap. I know you can't really see me very well, but you're going to tap now down your legs. You can do that any way you want to your feet, and then tap the sides of your legs and the back of your legs, inside. You can give your glutes a little tap. I always use my fists for that, and I do little knee bends just to get the movement going. You can do your lower back. And then go ahead and just put one of your arms out, let's say the left arm, and take your right hand, and you're going to tap your left arm down below, all the way to your neck. Get your whole arm and move your arm along as you do it. And this is, again, waking up all of these proprioceptors, giving us a sense of where we are in space. And then we're going to brush. It's like brushing sand off your arm. And then go ahead and shake it. And if you want, you can shake your leg as well. And then just let that go. And notice if you feel or see any difference. If we had more time, I would ask everybody, but I'm going to assume that you're feeling some kind of difference. Maybe you're feeling like that shoulder is a lot more released than it was before. And we're going to just lift the arm that you just tapped, and then lift the other arm. And then you might notice there's a little bit more ease in the arm that you just tapped. And you also might notice that that arm is a little longer. So we want to get the other arm just as long. So let's go ahead and, with your left hand, tap your right arm. And this is something you can do anytime, especially when you're ready to play your flute, because it releases, not only is it waking everything up as in terms of your body to your mind, but it's also releases a lot of tension, excess tension. And then you can brush again. And then you can shake. And you can balance on the one leg if you want to and shake both. Okay, shake it out. And then just stand here for a moment and breathe. And notice if you have any awareness of where your tongue is and your mouth. And just, let's just take about 10 seconds or something just to quietly notice. You also might have a little bit of awareness of maybe your posture has changed a little bit. You might be a little bit more upright and aligned. I know I feel that. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's take your flute out again and just play similar thing to what you played already and see if you've noticed any difference. Okay, so you're welcome to write anything in the chat that you want to. I probably won't really notice it very much, but for everybody else, if you have any, if you have any comments about anything that you're experiencing, just go ahead and put that in the chat if you want to. So anyway, what we did was we did a little comparison, right? We compared before and after, which is really a good way to notice what's going on inside your body. And so we're going to start out with getting a little bit more awareness to the jaw, because that's a really important part of what we're talking about. So this is what the jaw looks like. Can't quite fit it on me, but you can tell the shape is like this, and it's where our bottom teeth are. A lot of people say the jaws, but this is, this is the mandible, the jaw, and this is the movable part like that. So let's first of all see if we can find that. So just start at the bottom of your chin and just crimp like you're crimping a pie. If you've ever crimped a pie crust, and then you'll get to an angle, and so you'll move up the angle. Okay, and then right in front of the ear hole, if you move your mouth up and down, you should feel a joint. If you're a little too high, you're going to be on the skull. And if you're a little too low, you're still going to just be on the jaw. So here, you've probably heard of the TMJ, but most people think of it as something bad. But really what the TMJ is, it's the temporal mandibular joint, which is just the temporal bone and the mandible. So that's what the joint is called. So we can have the joint be really open, like that, or we can have it closed, or we can just have it lightly open. So like pretend like you're kind of like chewing gum real lightly inside your mouth. So that's the kind of movement that you probably want with flute playing. You don't want a lot of big movement. You don't want tight movement, it to be very tight. So go ahead, let's just finish feeling it so you know where it is. And then you can just open and close. And the one thing that you can also, that a lot of people do, is they think of two jaws, so they think of that kind of movement, but we want to try to keep it just the mandible, the bottom jaw moving. So let's go ahead and play and for a moment. And what I'm going to do is say, play first of all with a tight jaw. And then you're going to play with the open jaw. And then you're going to play with something in between. So try the tight jaw first and just play a couple notes. And then after that, go to like what we consider the open jaw. And then do the jaw opening that's a little bit very lightly open. And I've heard it described where it's like you have walnuts or almonds between your back teeth. That's how much space there is. And then play with that. I notice my lower lip gets softer. So you're probably noticing things. You probably notice with the tight jaw that it was hard to breathe and there wasn't much movement. And with the open jaw, that may have been difficult for air. And in between, maybe you noticed that there was a little bit more flexibility. So we're going to move on now to, we finished the, well, we'll come back to it, the jaw. And then we're going to go to the, what's called the hyoid bone, which is this little tiny bone. And it's a bone that's right above your larynx. So if you can touch your larynx and go to the top of the larynx, you're going to find, it's a little hard to find. You might not exactly find it, but you're going to find a little bone that's like this, that's on top of it. And just go ahead and open and close your mouth a few times. The hyoid bone again. Okay. This is what it looks like. I'm going to give you, I think I'm going to share the PowerPoint, a little bit of it just right now so that you can see some images, because that might help. Okay. So let's see. All right, so that's the start there. And then we go to the hyoid bone. And this is the jaw. And then we're going to talk about the tongue. And then in terms of where it is relative to your, this is a frontal view. These are different views of how they're all related, but I'm going to try to find something else here. It's right here below the tongue. Okay, maybe that helped a little bit, but it's really, it's, if you look here on the skeleton, it's right here. And here's the bottom of our jaw. So it's going to be a little bit above the bottom of our jaw. Anyway, so the importance of this hyoid bone is that there are many, many attachments, muscular attachments. So you could just go ahead with me. You're going to have attachments that go up here. They're going to go up to here. So those are called the supra because they're above the hyoid. And then you have ones that go down here to your sternum and your collarbone. And what's so interesting is you have one that goes to your shoulder blade. So all of this is really important for your head balance and keeping aligned. So why don't we just do a little bit of movement up and down and pretend like there's a spring when you're going up that's getting a little bit more expanded, and then when you go down, it's getting a little bit more compressed. So you have it in front, and then you even have it back here. And then go ahead now, take your flute out and just play with the idea of these ones that are above your hyoid. and just play a little bit. And you can go ahead and do a little bit of that movement so that you feel, see how that makes your tongue feel, and just sort of maybe a little bit more buoyant and light. Yes, it is interesting, for sure. Okay, then we can think about what's below. And there's a reason for all this, because we're going to get to the tongue very soon. So below we have the ones that are going muscles and ligaments. That one that's really important, I think, is one that goes to the sternum. So like if you're always like this, you know, this one's going to be kind of stuck. So we could give it a little stretch. Like that. And then that hyoid, if you want to try to put one of your fingers on your shoulder blade and then the other one here, you can give that a little stretch. And again, you can stick with that idea of the springiness, and then go to the other side, and it's right at the top of your shoulder blade is where it exists. Okay, and then just sit or stand, whatever you're doing right now, and just notice if maybe there's a little bit more, if your head feels just a little bit more centered or a little less tight. And then go ahead and play your flute, and go ahead and kind of think about these different muscles and the springiness, and that this hyoid bone is right in the middle. It's like a way station. Another way of thinking of it is like a suspension system. Okay, I'm going to move fast just because there's a lot to do, but there'll be 10 minutes at the end if there's any questions. So then what we're going to move on to now is how this is connected. So we have the hyoid bone, which is right here. And we have one of the muscles that comes from the hyoid bone is called the glenohyoid. And that's right here, but right below, right above that, like, you know, right there, this would be the first one. And then right above that is the genioglossus muscle. And that is anything that ends in glossus has to do with the tongue. So that is one of our tongue muscles. And we're going to just go through this real quickly, and then I'm going to show you pictures. So one of our tongue muscles is literally attached to this hyoid bone. And it's one of the extrinsic tongue muscles. So just go ahead and pretend like you're tonguing inside. And you feel a lot of movement, right? So that's what's happening. That's why we have the connection with the hyoid bone. And anything that is going to cause tension is going to affect this, the tongue movement. And then we also have our jaw, and that muscle that I'm talking about is also attached to our jaw. Again, it's an extrinsic tongue muscle. So I'm going to show you just a couple of pictures so you can see what I'm talking about. Well, this one, I'll just show you this one really quickly. This one was the one that we were, that image of the springs, because right here is the tongue. Here's your hyoid bone. Here's your skull. Here's your sternum. And here's your shoulder blades. So there's that. Let me go back now. Okay, so we saw that, so we can see how it's embedded. And then we can take a look at this picture. So hyoid was the one that I'm saying is the first one muscle that you would feel that's attached to the hyoid bone. And then you have this genioglossus right here. So that's attached to the hyoid bone. And here you have your mandible or your jaw. So this muscle is attached to both the jaw and to the hyoid bone. And then again, this is called an extrinsic muscle of the tongue. And then you have this one called the hyoglossus, which is attached to your hyoid bone, but is then not attached to another bone, but is attached to, it kind of all interlaces into these other muscles that are part of the tongue. So you have that, and then you have this other one called the styloglossus, and we'll find those together. But the styloglossus is a muscle that of the tongue that goes all the way up into the styloid process, which is sort of behind your ear at the bottom of your skull. And then you have this other one called the palatoglossus, which is right above where you swallow, where your soft palate is, pretty much. And then, so those are called the extrinsic. And then you have your tongue here, which is what most people think of as the only part of the tongue. And these contain 4 different kinds of muscles. And all of these muscles from the outside go into them. And these muscles are then have their own jobs as well. So we'll go over that. Let's see. And then this is just another picture that's it's a little bit more detailed, but you can see again this shows the lips and everything. This is your jaw, and then here's your genioglossus, and then here's your hyoid bone. This is the hyoglossus, and the styloglossus, which I said went up here to the back of your skull. And I know this is probably really confusing, but it gives you at least an appreciation. Here's your palatoglossus, which is right here. So you can see it kind of swirls around like that, and that's where your soft palate is, right there. And then you have the other part of your tongue. Let me see if there's anything else I want to show you. Okay, yeah. I'm going to stop the share for right now. Okay, so that's a lot. I realize if you're not used to, if you don't know anything about this particular part of the tongue, because I know for me, before I started doing this, I just thought the tongue was, this part that you see. I had no idea there were these other muscles. But let's play around a little bit. And then after that, we'll do some playing, and then I'm going to give you some more information. So we'll start with those extrinsic muscles. So the extrinsic muscles, this is what they can do. So they're from the outside. And so the extrinsic muscles, you can protrude your tongue. So everybody has to do this, okay? So you protrude like that, and then you retract it, and then you elevate it so you can lift it up, and then you can depress it like that. So sometimes I want to make, it would be kind of fun to make like a marionette tongue, I think, because you'd have the tongue, and then you'd have the outside ones where you have the one where it can depress the tongue, another one where it can elevate the tongue, and then make it go out, and then make it go in like this. So does that make sense? Hopefully it makes sense. Okay. And then we have these intrinsic muscles. And if you can see this little image here, I know it's small, but the intrinsic muscles are what's inside this part of your tongue. And these all do different things. I'm not going to go specifically into what they do, but in general, where I have intrinsic muscles, that's what they do. But so you have it's called superior longitudinal, you have vertical, you have transverse, and then you have this inferior longitudinal. But basically, these muscles are not attached. You can't see the image, somebody said? Oh, that's because, I'm sorry, ha ha ha, because I didn't share. Sorry about that. Let me do that. Sorry. Okay. All right, what is going on here? Do you see it now?
Yes, we have it.
Okay, good, thank you.
It's too small.
Yeah, I know, I'm trying to get something going here so I can use slideshow. Is that a little better? I know it's a small image, but you can look this up too. You can just look up intrinsic tongue muscles and you'll be able to see it. But basically what it is that you have these little muscles in here. You have these muscles, and these are the muscles that allow you to do all of this that is under intrinsic muscles. And the really interesting thing about these muscles is that they are not, they're not attached to bone. They're just attached to themselves. And the tongue muscle it's called a hydrostat muscle. So it's the same thing as an octopus tentacle or an elephant's trunk, where it has a certain kind of quality, like this kind of thing, where you have a volume like this, but you can change the shape all the time. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here in my little box here, but you can change the shapes. It's always going to be the same volume, but you can vary it in so many different ways, and the tongue is that way. Hydrostat. So with this up, why don't we think about these intrinsic muscles? So the intrinsic muscles, you can shorten and elongate. And again, feel free to let your tongue leave your mouth. So you can shorten it. Everybody just do whatever you need to. Elongate it. Do that a few times, and then you could do it with your mouth open and your mouth closed, because it's a different experience. And then you can widen it and then narrow it. And we have different parts of the tongue, and so you have the tip of the tongue, and you can curl it upward like you're trying to touch your nose, and then you can curl it downward like you're trying to touch your chin, and then you can flatten it. And I think there's a bunch of other things you can do to it. Like one thing you can do is, make it so it's kind of like a channel. It's the sides curl up and then like a tubular kind of thing. And then you have all these, huge amount of other kinds of motions. So what I was going to say is, why don't you take your flute out, and you can't, obviously you can't play your flute with it going out of your mouth, but see what it's like to actually play around with some of these things with your flute, with your tongue inside your mouth. You can tongue, or you can simply sustain a note, whatever you want to do. Yeah, the sound might not be your best sound when you do these things, but it gives you an idea. So another thing I'd like you to do is just, again, the tongue has a huge amount of sensory capability. For example, like if you drink something hot, you know, you go to Starbucks and you get a hot coffee and you drink it too soon, you're immediately going to take the cup away. So go ahead and just take your tongue and outline the inside of your teeth up and down. And then move it along the roof of your mouth. And notice how much movement you have. And then you can move it down a little bit. And then you can wiggle it, kind of squiggle it around. Okay, so those are your tongue exercises for today. Now, go ahead and so we're going to just play around a little bit. So with tongue, and then I'm going to show you a couple other things. So let's just say tonguing is one of the big deals for playing flute. So why don't you just experiment right now with tonguing more on the tip, and it would be more like a t, and then try tonguing also where you're tonguing with the tongue a little bit wider and it's more like a d, t, 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 and da, 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 and see what that does with your flute playing. So with this awareness that you have this incredible tongue that just can make so many different shapes. Okay, so I'm assuming you probably noticed a little difference. This time, do some tonguing with la, like that, inside your mouth, la. So you're really widened. And then kind of put that idea together with what you're doing, what you did before, so that you have a wider tongue, but you're tonguing how you like to tongue. And just see if there's any difference between a widened tongue and a more narrow tongue. Okay, someone asked about, I have problems getting the tip of my tongue small enough. You don't have to. Everybody's going to be different. This is just, I'm just going through some ranges of more extremes so that you can feel the difference. So it's fine. And then, so let's take a look at, so on your own, we could spend a lot more time on this, but on your own, let's do it first of all with, before I show you something else, let's do it with the g and the k. So g, 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 and see what happens like if you move your tongue kind of like it's going this way on the roof of your mouth, and see what differences you get with that, with what feels the most movable and flexible. Go, 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 you know, that kind of thing. So play with that. And then after you do that, do it with K and make whatever adjustments you need so that you can be really flexible with your tongue, and then remembering to keep the jaw, keep the jaw nice and released here, and then also keeping released in your hyoid bone and all those connections. Yeah, flutter tonguing, some people can do it and some people can't. I think it's a genetic thing, is what I've heard. So that's all true. The other thing is some people can do that and some people can't roll their tongue that way. But now see about playing where your tongue is slightly, not to that extreme, but where there's a little bit of a dip in your tongue. Yeah, like that. It's what Keith calls the pearly sound. It's like you have a pearl here that's moving up and down. So go ahead and play with that just for a minute, then I'm going to show you some images. Actually, oops. I want to show you this one because remember that what we were talking about with the connection between the shoulder blade. There's a connection with the tongue all the way to the shoulder blade because you have this hyoid bone here and the tongue is connected to your hyoid bone, and then you have another muscle, omohyoid, which is connected to your shoulder blade. So that has implications with how you're standing, where your shoulders are, and all that kind of thing as to how flexible, how well your tongue can move. All right, I'm going to move on to this one now. So this is really kind of cool. I don't know if you've heard of Sarah Willis, but if you look her up, she did these MRI. She plays horn with the Berlin Philharmonic, and she did a whole bunch of exercises while she was playing in an MRI. And I wanted to just show you how much her tongue moves in this. Okay. So, somebody was saying pretty sure both sides. What are you talking about? Let me look at the chat. Oh, both shoulder blades. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's like, again, a suspension system. Yeah, if your tongue is getting tired, please just take a break. Can you see me, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, if your tongue is getting tired, I understand that. It means that it's like, oh, you're, kind of working hard at it. But go ahead and just take a break from it instead, so that it doesn't become like a big thing. But now, let's see, the tongue with all of that. So with this particular thing that we just looked at, you can see how much the tongue is moving, not only for tonguing using your tongue, but for tonguing, but also for all of the different register changes. And so that's what goes on with us too for playing the flute, is that we're adjusting the tongue for each register. So I think everybody noticed when she was playing that when she was going higher, the tongue got closer to the roof of the mouth. Everybody noticed that, right? And then when it was lower, it got lower. So the space between the tongue and the roof of the mouth changes. And so when it's low, when the tone is lower, then you want more space between the top, your palate and your tongue. And then when you want to get higher, then you change the space. And that has to do with the velocity of the air. I suppose. No, you know what? I know horn and flute are not the same, but believe it or not, there's so many. Try it. That's all I can say is try it. Horn and flute are not the same, but let's take a note. Let's take a scale and play whatever scale you want to, an F scale, G scale, C scale, 1 octave, without moving your tongue, and slur it and see what that feels like. And I'm going to show, I have some of flute also, so you'll see some. Can everybody just do that? Okay, now I don't know what your experience of it was, but my experience is that I hardly have any air, and my tone is just very uninteresting and not resonant at all. Now do the same thing and just allow your tongue to just lightly release up and then lightly release down as you're playing. Did you notice the difference with that? Hopefully you did. Okay. Hopefully you noticed a difference with that. So I'm going to show you, I knew I had enough for 2 hours to share with you, so I'm going to have to start ending, but I'm going to spend a few more minutes on a couple things. I wanted to show you, I showed this one to you, but I also want to show you, why is that not working? Okay. With the octaves for the flute, I have this one.
In this movie, we can observe the octave register change by overblowing. The register change is triggered by an increase in blowing velocity. Similar to the change from piano to forte, one can observe how the space between the root of the tongue and the posterior pharyngeal wall is widened, and the distance between the back of the tongue and the palate decreases slightly.
We can't see it.
Oh, that's weird. You can't see it. I'm sorry.
It's just still on the horn slide.
Okay. I don't know why you can't see it. Because I have these other videos, but you saw basically what it was basically the difference wasn't as great as what we saw with the horn player. But there was exactly the same thing where the tongue goes up a little bit, and especially towards the back of the tongue in the pharynx, there's a lot more space. So as you're going up, there's going to be the space. So let's do, let's do just spend a little bit of time on 1 or 2 things, and then we'll stop and I'll answer questions. But let's simply, on your own, there's a lot of stuff you can do to say, like with using different vowel sounds. There's tons you can do with that. But what I'd like you to do is just go ahead and play your favorite piece or your whatever scale you want to, And right now, go ahead and, okay, somebody's giving me some ideas. No, I don't have a link to that video. There are links to the YouTube for the other one, the horn player, but I don't have that. These are movies that I have. Okay, so go ahead and just take a minute to play with scales. See how your tongue moves when you're going up and down, and don't force it. Just kind of like use an image. I like the image of a jellyfish or something going up and then going down. Very aquatic images are really nice. Or anything that's, that's nature, it could be like a leaf in the breeze and then releasing and going down. Anything that's not going to be like efforting, something just nice and light. And as you're doing it, you can also just remember about your head being balanced and your hyoid bone, and then also your jaw. And while you're doing that, I'm going to see if I can get that working.
In this movie, we can observe the octave register change by overblowing.
Is this working?
The register change is triggered by an increase in blowing velocity. Similar to the change from piano to forte, one can observe how the space between the root of the tongue and the posterior pharyngeal wall is widened, and the distance between the back of the tongue and the palate decreases slightly.
Were you able to see that and hear that one?
Yes, but it was a bit dark.
But you saw, yeah, it is dark because that was the way it was done. So let me share one other one that I really love to kind of show you how the body just works together, and then we'll stop. Okay, we'll share this.
In this movie,
Okay, let's see if you see this one. I like this one because it not only shows what's going on inside the mouth and the breathing and everything, it also shows what's going on inside your torso. So let me know if this one's working. Just thumbs up. Madison, if it's working, just give me. Okay, thank you. It's gonna show up, don't worry. There we go. So on the left, you have your organs and your heart. And then on your right, you have all the movement of the tongue. And as the breath is going, and there'll be a breath, big breath coming in. I love that one. Anyway, those videos that I have are from, I forget what institute. I bought a CD about 10 years ago from, it was in Austria, and I don't remember what it is. And so I just was able to copy some of the little movies, but it's an amazing video because it does all the wind instruments and what's going on inside. So what you can see is that we're just completely all connected. We have to have all this flexibility in here. We're talking about the outside right now, but the inside, with the pharynx is very, very, very flexible. And then the tongue, there's just, everything's connected. Everything just moves, and it's not like in straight lines. It's all very fluid. And then you have everything going on in your torso, which is moving in tandem. So that's pretty much it. And I think just take one moment where you're sitting and then just close your eyes or standing and just like literally, I'm just going to say like 15 seconds, and just notice now if you have a different awareness of your tongue and appreciation. Yes, the tongue is mightier than the sword. That's true. The tongue is so important. It's incredible. Anyway, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? We have a few minutes. How do we know if our tongues are doing the how do we know if our tongues are doing the optimal position to be better players? One thing is that one thing that's really important is your balance and your posture. So if you're too far forward this way, your tongue is not going to be working optimally. Or if you're too far back this way, that's one really important thing. So you can kind of literally, think of your tongue as a weight. And as you're going forward, you're going to be weighed down. As you're going back, you're going to be weighed back. But when you're right in the center, then it's going to be in an optimal position for playing. I mean, that's just one really simple thing. So that would be one thing. And then also keeping in mind all these other, I don't think it was Pahud, but anyway, there's all this movement in here that is completely related, and then movement here. So it's not just one thing, it's a whole collection. Anybody else have any ideas, thoughts, questions? I'm going to just show you if anybody is interested, just so that you know. You just have to stop with my thank you. That's the wrong one. Yes, there's my thank you. Thank you. So if you're interested, you can contact me. And then I've been the way I got into this was after doing all this. I really got into. I was thinking I'd love to teach a class called Playing Flute from the Inside Out, and so that's where I got this idea for doing this particular class, because there's so much to it, and I wanted to be able to share it with you, so it gives you like a completely different perspective of what the tongue is and movement and everything else. So thank you, everybody. And if you want to contact me, my website is Flute Muse, as in FLUTEMUSE.com, and there's a contact me thing, and I'm happy to answer any questions beyond this for you. It'd be perfectly fine. So thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you to Ruth. Thank you to
Thank you,
everyone
Ruth.
who attended today. A recording will be published on the NFA YouTube channel later this week, and our next online event will be Resonating Body Method, Body, Mind, and the Art of Resonance on November 2nd. To learn more about us, visit our website at nfaonline.org or follow us at NFA Flute on social media. Thank you again.